Nobody ever told you that the reason your relationships feel shallow, your ideas get ignored in rooms full of people, and the version of yourself you show the world feels nothing like the version living inside your head, is almost entirely a communication problem. Not an intelligence problem. Not a personality problem. Not a, you're just not that kind of person, problem. A communication problem, and communication is a skill, which means it was learned, which means it can be unlearned and rebuilt into something that actually works for you. But here's the thing that every book, every course, and every LinkedIn post about communication gets completely wrong. They treat it like a performance, like a set of techniques you layer on top of yourself before walking into a room: speak clearly, make eye contact, use confident body language, pause for effect. And those things matter, they genuinely do, but if you practice them without building the daily habits underneath them, you are painting over a wall that's already cracking, and it shows, and people can feel it even when they can't name what's off. Real communication isn't a performance you turn on. It's a muscle, and muscles are built through daily, consistent, almost boring repetition, not through weekend workshops and highlight reel advice. So here are the daily habits that actually build genuine communication ability from the inside out, the ones that change not just how you speak but how you think, how you listen, and how you make other people feel when they're around you. The first habit is one that almost nobody practices and almost everybody desperately needs, and it starts the moment you wake up and reaches into every single conversation you have for the rest of the day. Start noticing the gap between what you mean and what you actually say. Most people assume these two things are the same. They think what's in their head transfers cleanly into their words and lands exactly as intended on the other side, and this assumption is quietly responsible for more misunderstandings, more failed relationships, more missed opportunities than almost anything else in human communication. Start a simple practice every day. After any conversation that felt slightly off, slightly misunderstood, slightly less connected than you wanted, just ask yourself honestly, did I say what I actually meant, or did I say the closest version of it that felt safe? That honest, quiet question repeated daily will reveal patterns in your communication that years of external feedback never could, because you are the only one who knows the distance between what you meant and what you said. The second habit is the one that will make you more magnetic in conversations than any speaking technique ever will, and it's not about speaking at all. It's about listening, but not the kind of listening most people think they're already doing. Most people listen to respond. They track the conversation just enough to know when their turn is coming and spend the rest of the time half listening while internally preparing what they're going to say next. You can feel when someone does this to you. There's a subtle flatness to the conversation, a feeling that your words are landing in an empty room even though someone is standing right in front of you nodding. The daily habit here is this: pick at least one conversation every single day and make a genuine, conscious decision to listen with the only goal of understanding. Not to respond, not to relate, not to share your similar experience the moment they finish, just to understand what this specific person is actually trying to communicate beneath the words they're using. Ask one follow-up question that proves you were actually listening, not a surface question, not, "Oh, that sounds tough," but a question that shows you heard something they maybe didn't even fully say out loud yet. Do this once a day, with intention, and within weeks the people around you will start describing you with a word they can't quite explain. They'll say you're easy to talk to, they'll say they feel heard around you, they'll come to you with things they don't take to other people. That's not a social skill, that's the direct result of a daily listening habit. The third habit is uncomfortable and most people avoid it their entire lives, which is exactly why most people never become truly confident communicators. Record yourself talking. Not to be self-conscious, not to obsess over every filler word and awkward pause, but because your internal experience of how you sound and how you actually sound to other people are two completely different realities. You have heard your own voice processed through your own skull your entire life, and that version sounds nothing like what comes through a speaker. Most people hear themselves recorded for the first time and feel an almost physical cringe, not because they're bad communicators, but because the gap between the internal experience and the external reality is suddenly visible and the brain finds that genuinely unsettling. Spend 5 minutes a day, just 5, talking into your phone about anything, literally anything, your morning, what you're thinking about, a story from your week, and then play it back and listen for one specific thing, not what you said but how you're pacing, where you're rushing, where your energy drops, where you sound genuinely certain versus where you sound like you're asking for permission to finish your own sentence. That daily 5 minutes will teach you more about your actual communication patterns than any other habit on this list because you simply cannot improve what you cannot hear. The fourth habit is about the daily inputs going into your brain, because the quality of what comes out of your mouth in any given conversation is directly connected to the quality of what you're feeding your mind every single day. Read for 30 minutes every day, not tweets, not captions, not summaries, actual long-form writing, books, essays, long journalism, anything where a human being had to develop and sustain a thought across more than 3 sentences. This does something to your brain that most people completely underestimate. It builds what linguists call lexical fluency, your brain's ability to access the right word quickly, to move between ideas smoothly, to construct a thought in real time without trailing off or reaching for filler words because the word you actually need isn't loading fast enough. Every time you read something well written, your brain is quietly absorbing sentence structures, transitions, and the architecture of how ideas connect to each other, and that architecture starts showing up in your speech without you consciously trying to put it there. People who read consistently communicate with a clarity and a specificity that people who don't read almost never match, and the gap shows up in the exact moments that matter most, the high-stakes conversations, the ones where you need to say exactly the right thing and you need to say it now. The fifth habit is the one that ties every other habit together, and without this one the other 4 will never fully stick. Have one uncomfortable conversation every single week that you've been putting off. Not a fight, not a confrontation, just a real, honest, direct conversation that you've been avoiding because some part of you is afraid of how the other person might respond. The message you haven't sent, the boundary you haven't stated, the thing you've been thinking for weeks that you keep deciding today is not the right day for. Avoidance is the single most effective way to ensure that your communication skills stay exactly where they are permanently. Because communication isn't just technique, it's emotional courage, and emotional courage is built the exact same way physical courage is built, through repeated, intentional exposure to the thing that makes you want to step back. Every time you have the conversation you've been avoiding, your brain updates its emotional threat assessment around honest communication, it gets fractionally less scary each time, your words come out more cleanly each time, your ability to stay regulated in a tense exchange improves each time. And over weeks and months and years of doing this consistently, you become the kind of person who can say a hard true thing in a calm, clear voice without it feeling like a crisis, and that is a level of communication that most people spend their entire lives wishing they had without ever doing the daily work to build it. Communication is how you move through the world. It's how you get the job, keep the relationship, lead the team, earn the respect, and feel genuinely understood by the people who matter to you. And every single day you wake up, you get a new set of chances to practice it, in the morning conversation, in the work meeting, in the message you type and delete and retype, in the moment you almost said something real and didn't. Those moments are not random, they are the daily curriculum. The only question is whether you're actually showing up to class. If this gave you something real today, share it with one person who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Daily Dose of Knowledge, because this channel exists for the people who actually want to understand themselves.